Hey guys, it's Scully. Welcome back. So when I look back at some of the older videos I had done, I noticed in one of my videos I had mentioned this topic, but I hadn't actually done a standalone video on this topic as a whole, and I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into it. So I wanted to make a video about anxiety. Anxiety is something that really a lot of people have experienced at some point in their life. And it can be a very complex issue because there's so many different things that can cause it. For some people, it can be situational, like social anxiety is a very, very common one. For some people, it can be environmental, like if somebody's on the verge of getting divorced or if they're experiencing financial issues, that can be things in their life that are causing a lot of anxiety. School, work, really just about anything that involves a lot of time, determination, and effort really can cause anxiety if it's something that's a big enough part of your life and something that you care about or can affect your life in a lot of ways as well. So it can be a very, very complex thing. For some people, they can have a lot of anxiety because they can have mental health issues that are linked to it. Depression and anxiety oftentimes go together. Obsessive compulsive disorder has a lot of anxiety with it, along with fixations. Post-traumatic stress disorder has a lot of anxiety in it as well. And then there's also things like panic disorder. So a lot of diseases or just things in general that have anxiety with it. So you can see why it's so common and why there's thankfully a lot more information about it now than there used to be. So how exactly do people deal with anxiety? Well, a lot of times that depends on what kind of anxiety you're having. Like if you're having it short term, long term, chronic kind of things, you're definitely going to want to manage it because it can get worse over time if it's left untreated. If it's short term, you might be able to just kind of manage it as it kind of comes and goes. But for some people, like medication can be an issue. That's, of course, going to be determined by their doctor because that depends on the person. That's kind of a case by case basis. So we kind of just leave that up to the professionals because that's more their ball game, not mine. So, but yeah, so that's an option for some people depending on the circumstances. But then there's ones that are kind of more long-standing, and sometimes things like medication can help. But then there's other things to kind of do as well to make that a little bit easier. Because, like anything, it takes a lot of patience, and it can take different things, trying different things, and seeing what works before you kind of get more better results. And if anxiety is left untreated, it really can wreak havoc on your life in really a lot of ways. It can cause physical symptoms. It can make it difficult for you to sleep. Your heart can race quite a bit if you have it. You can start to shake and even sweat excessively if you have it. And of course, it can affect the important parts of your life. Like it can affect your attendance at work if you're calling off work all the time because you're not getting a lot of sleep because of it. Or if you're getting a lot of panic attacks at work and it's affecting your performance, that can add up very quickly. And yeah, and then of course one of the other physical symptoms, like I previously mentioned, was like insomnia. That can vary from one person to the next, but chronic anxiety can make it very difficult for somebody to sleep or even stay asleep, and that can affect their energy levels. There are some things that people do, and now not everybody does it, but there are some notable things that a lot of people do that can also affect anxiety that some people don't realize. Drinking excessive amounts of caffeine very much affects anxiety. It can also affect sleep. So, if you're somebody who's drinking a lot of caffeine, not only could that make you more anxious, but if you're having trouble sleeping because of your anxiety, drinking a lot of caffeine can make that worse as well. And I mean, some people do drink caffeine and maybe they just drink a little bit, and that's not usually too bad, but then there are some people that drink quite a bit. And caffeine can also cause you to crash after a while. Like, you get all this energy, you drink all this caffeine, and then you get real revved up with energy, and then your body just kind of feels maxed out for a bit until eventually your energy levels just start going downhill, and then you got a whole another mess of problems because of that. So, doing things like cutting back on caffeine can actually really help anxiety if it's becoming a pretty big issue. Things like if you don't already have something like a therapist to talk to, anxiety greatly helps with that too. Sometimes when people have a lot of anxiety, they just simply need to get it off their chest. They just need somebody to talk to. And there's nothing wrong with having friends and family to talk to, because those people usually know you pretty well and they'll listen to you and try to help you a lot of times if they're, really caring people and want you to get better and everything. But if you see somebody like a therapist, not only can they help you with your anxiety, but if you don't know what's causing it, they can help you get to the root of your anxiety. And they are more equipped with tools to help you manage it because they are trained in that field. So that's one of the other things I've recommended to some people I know, that if they really are having a hard time, I tell them, don't be afraid to get a therapist. They're very wonderful people, very well trained, very sympathetic, very good listeners. Sometimes financially that can be an issue as well. So if you have like insurance, try to see if there's any that are recommended based on your plan, or if there's any like doctors you can talk to that have a list of people they can recommend. And even if you don't have insurance, just kind of see if there's kind of anything around your area. See if maybe they have any kind of payment plans or anything that you can kind of do to get yourself worked in, if that's an option for you. So, because anxiety can be managed, and people like that, they have a lot of people they talk to, and they're not going to judge you for having anxiety and having fear, because it's a normal emotion for people to have, but you don't want it to rule your life. It's noted that having anxiety sometimes is a little bit normal, but if you have it on a chronic level and if it's really starting to affect your life, then that is something that you want to get addressed. Not only so you know how to kind of deal with it as it comes, but also because it's just not healthy to have so much anxiety all the time that's wreaking havoc on your life. Because you have every right to be happy and to live your life, and you don't want to live in fear all the time. Life is a wonderful thing that's very short, and you want to be able to go out there and enjoy your life rather than feeling like something like your anxiety is really putting things on hold for you in just a lot of different areas. So if you're somebody who's struggling with something like anxiety, it's easy to feel guilty and sit there and kind of blame yourself for everything you're feeling, but your feelings are relevant even if you don't know why they're there. And there are very much available resources to help people with things like that. Because even though things like this are manageable, they unfortunately don't happen overnight. And that's what can be very frustrating about it, because when things like symptoms with anxiety happen, they can get so overwhelming that you want relief so quickly. You really just want it to stop, but unfortunately the things that people do to try to alleviate that so quickly are usually not healthy. And the things that usually work and stick around are usually things that take more time. Your mind can feel like a really scary place sometimes when you have anxiety, because you feel like you've pictured every possible thing that can go wrong in the world and think you have every detail of it ironed out perfectly, and then more things pop up and then your anxiety comes back. So even though there are some methods that people use to help get rid of anxiety, some can be helpful and some aren't. And I do feel like that can also depend on the person, since everybody's kind of different. If you've ever had people that have given you a hard time for having anxiety, just keep in mind that those things are very difficult for people to understand, and that you don't have to let those people get to you, because you know why you feel the way you do about things. You know how your mind works for the most part. And even if you don't know why you have certain feelings or certain thoughts, when you tell yourself you shouldn't think or feel certain ways about things, that usually makes it worse, and that makes you feel more guilty, more overwhelmed. So one of the greatest things you can do if you experience anxiety a lot, or even in the past, is to let you know that you're allowed to feel a certain way about things. And even if it doesn't make sense to you, just remind yourself that, okay, well, this is how I feel. I don't know why, but this is how I feel. And sometimes just letting yourself have those feelings and just kind of giving yourself space to just kind of address those things and try to figure them out can help you feel better, and realize that you're human and you have feelings. Part of being human is having feelings. It's not always the fun part of being human, but it's normal. So just give yourself some patience and, yes, especially like I said with counseling is very helpful. And if not, you can always talk to your doctor and see what they recommend because your doctors, I mean, they're not psychologists or therapists, but they're there to help you. And they can give you some very valuable things to help you as well if you're needing something to help you get better. Because it won't last forever and it will eventually get better. So just keep trying until something works because eventually something will work. Until next time, have a great day.